Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Now today we're going to be diving into what I consider one of the most tragic backstories of a DC villain. I was debating whether I should do Clayface or Mr. Freeze, but I decided that Mr. Freeze is a lot more dramatic. Or tragic, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, anyways, let's dive into it. Okay guys, so Mr. Freeze was originally named Victor Fries. He was a cryogenist who worked at Goth Corp, okay? His wife then fell ill with a very, very deadly disease, and Mr. Freeze wanted to keep his wife alive. So then he built a kind of like a cryo tank. I don't know if he built it or not, but he put her in a cryo tank to keep her alive so he could have enough time to find the cure. And this is where it kind of gets tragic. So the CEO of Goth Corp stopped the project to keep his wife alive, and that right here is kind of how Mr. Freeze was formed. So there's many backstories depending on which storyline, comic, whatever you want to call it, show, anything you're watching or reading. There's many different storylines, but right now I'm gonna stick to the two main ones that are used a lot. So the first backstory of him is the boss stops the project, and then the boss does either the boss shoots him with a freeze gun, or the boss kicks him into a vat of, well, not a vat, just a bunch of chemicals, or cryo tanks explode. There's a bunch of different things. Or Mr. Freeze just willingly becomes Mr. Freeze, just so he can have all these nice gadgets. There's many backstories depending on once again the comic show you're watching. Well, anyways, so unable to keep himself alive with now having his body transform into a body that is cold-blooded and can only be kept in sub-zero temperatures, or very, very cold places, Mr. Freeze builds himself a suit so he can keep himself alive. And then, since the boss stopped the funding on the project that's keeping Victor Fries or Mr. Freeze's wife Nora alive, Mr. Freeze runs out of money and decides, hey, I got all this stuff, I'm gonna start robbing banks. So he makes himself all these gadgets, and now this is where he kind of becomes a villain. He starts robbing banks and all that, and now he's the same Mr. Freeze that we all know of today. Mr. Freeze where Batman shows up and stops him. But this is kind of where I feel like this is one of the most tragic backstories. You have a man whose wife was terminally ill. He's trying to keep his wife alive, find his wife a cure, and all these people are stopping him. Of course, he's doing it in a wrong way, but Batman knows that Mr. Freeze is Victor Fries, and Batman is secretly Bruce Wayne, so I don't get why Batman doesn't just hand him a huge check so Mr. Freeze doesn't have to rob these banks. Because Mr. Freeze, in most storylines, he doesn't rob these banks for fun. He's trying to get money to keep his wife alive. This is why I consider it one of the most tragic backstories. You have a man turned by evil people because he was trying to keep his terminally ill wife alive. And these people, they turned him into Mr. Freeze. Sure, in some storylines, he willingly becomes Mr. Freeze so he can rob places and get money, but most of the time, it's the other way around. But yeah, with that being said, that's kind of the story of Mr. Freeze. This is kind of a short video because explaining backstories is quite simple. Explaining comic storylines, on the other hand, is kind of hard. Well, kind of long, not hard. But anyways, with that being said, my next video should be a Batman The Adventures Continue comic storyline explained. Because if you didn't know, if you're a huge fan of the anime series like I am, I recommend giving that a read because it's an absolutely amazing comic book storyline. But with that being said, happy holidays and have a great rest of your day. Peace.